and welcome to another evening of frank conversation coming to you from our studios in Abuja. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf. Daily, as a people, we're confronted with challenges that make us reflect on why it would seem that progress eludes us. The problems are multiple as they are complex. While some have pinned it down to the type of government, that is, whether democracy is the best form of government suited to a multicultural, developing entity like ours, others think nothing but a radical restructuring of our entity is the way to go. And many books have been written on this, sometimes by those in the ivory towers, other times on the basis of experience of those who've been in government. The gap oftentimes is moving from knowledge to experience. On Hard Copy tonight, we speak with a political economist and researcher who's also in government. Dr. Omano Edigheji is a special advisor to Governor Nasir El-Rufai on research and documentation and the author of several works, one of which is Nigeria, Democracy Without Development, How to Fix It. Dr. Edigheji, welcome to Hard Copy.
Thank you, and thank you to the listener.
A very interesting book indeed, Nigeria, Democracy Without Development. I mean, I spent some time trying to, go through. I'm sure you see areas where I have underlined and highlighted and what have you. Really interesting thesis, especially because you decide to write on how to fix the problem. Some people will say, have you diagnosed it? Do you think that with every day extra that you spend in Nigeria and in government, are you convinced that you have diagnosed the problem convincingly?
Thank you, Maupe, and thank you to the listeners. My work is grounded on science. It is grounded on a theoretical framework, which a number of scholars have used to try to understand why certain countries develop and why others do not develop. And we zero in the most plausible scientific explanation is the role of institutions. Record Nigerian fought, died, men detained in order to have democracy. Why did they do that? Nigeria expected that democracy will yield democratic dividend. It will lead to qualitative improvement of their material conditions. Democracy will create enabling environment for our industry to expand. Democracy will lead to create the condition for job creations, and Nigeria democracy will create the condition for the country to become, I think under the Obasanjo administration, the aspiration was that by 2020, Nigeria will become one of the 20th leading economy in the world.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
We missed it.
We had high hopes.
Yes.
Well, 2020 was an interesting year.
Yes.
It was anything but what we thought it was going to be 2020. We had high hopes for our democracy when we returned to the democratic regime in 1999. A lot of Nigerians thought, we're entering a new dawn.
Yes.
And we were sure that we were going to get it right.
Yes.
Sadly, that has not been our experience.
Yes.
But with those who know in development circles, the conversation is not peculiar to Nigeria as to why sometimes democracy underdelivers in areas where people have had these high hopes. I'll give you an instance. One of the arguments you seem to make, and I don't know if you can tell me if this is a sense that you also get, is that we are unripe for democracy. I'll cite this part where you say that citizens are able to exercise real choice and participate meaningfully and equally in democracy only after they have gone beyond poverty, squalor, and inequality. Poverty makes democracy fragile and lose credibility. We have been arguing, I think there's some statistics that have come out only recently to say that Nigeria is the poverty capital of the world, or we've taken over as poverty capital of the world. When you look at some of the things that we see in our electoral process, where we talk about vote buying, for instance, would you agree with those who say that we are unripe for democracy?
No, the problem is not that we are unwrapped. We are not unwrapped. It is precisely because of the developmental deficit that you mentioned that Nigerian fought, struggled, died, went to jail for democracy. But the foundation of our democracy was flawed. Flawed in a number of ways, and I'll give some examples. First, for a country to develop, you need what I would call, what I refer to in the book, a developmental elite that form a developmental coalition and decide the kind of a country that they aspire to. You need an elite consensus. In the Nigeria context, we have been very unlucky that we do not have an elite that have a clear development vision about where the country should go to. As a consequence, what you have is valueless, what I refer to in the book as valueless politics. Politics without principles. So that is one of the issues. As a result of a lack of a developmentalist ideology, that is an ideology about how they will create employment, how they will invest in education, how they will invest in health, how they will create a post-oil economy, how they will industrialize the country. We do not have that elite. As a consequence, they did not do the second part. So the first part is leadership. That's the first thing. The second part was that as a consequence of the absence of a developmental elite that is ready to develop the country, they did not establish the requisite institution that will drive development. You look at our public service and you compare it to countries that have developed. There are key variables that are missing. For example, you take our national, we used to have a national planning commission, which is now recently merged with the Minister of Finance, which scientifically it is wrong. To develop, you need a ministry or you need a commission that focus primarily on planning.
We had an entire ministry dedicated to that until recently.
We had such in name because, and I'll give you statistics. We have the economic planning unit in Malaysia. It has 366 staff. 60% of that have a master's degree and above, and in economics and MBAs. We have a similar in China. It has 1,000 staff. Most of those have a first degree and above. Of that, in the Malaysian context, they have I think 17 or 19 think tanks that support them in carrying out the research, because planning has to be driven by science, by hard evidence, evidence-based policy making. So you compare that to our planning commission. Then the National Planning Commission will develop a national development plan that is implemented consistently over time. Since 1999, how many development vision have we had, and have they been implemented consistently over time? We had Vision 2020, Agenda agenda? Is this 17 by Yaradua, transformation by Jonathan? These are not, they were not, none of them were implemented consistently over time.
When in 1999 democracy came back to Nigeria, would you say that it was obvious from the crop of political elite that we had then that a developmental elite that had the ideology which you're talking about was absent?
Okay, we have to look at it in two ways. The first is Babangida, and we are living through that legacy today. The credible, those that were more visionary, those that were more nationalistic, those that were more patriotic of the elite, Babangida banned them. So he created a vacuum for what one will say non-patriotic, visionless individual to occupy the political space. That is one of the problems that we have inherited. Some of these people have no profession. Some of them have not worked, in their life. As a consequence, they enter the state, they don't know how to manage the state. The very few, and you can point to an example where you had some very few individuals, they did well, in the context, even as we speak today. You can point to some states that are doing very well, and you have to look at the background of those who run those states.
You have mentioned China. You have mentioned
Malaysia.
Malaysia. Do you think that we have adopted the right model? Let me quickly read this to you. You say, whatever model of democracy we conceive for Africa, I think it's a quote from Kabele Matslosa. Whatever model of democracy we conceive for Africa, it must be a democracy that addresses the basic needs and fundamental rights of Africans first and foremost. Some people say, do we need democracy to deliver this?
I will say yes. That China is developing rapidly. It is not because of its authoritarian model or dictatorship. If there's no correlation, there's no scientific basis, there's no evidence, scientific evidence, to show that authoritarianism leads to development. If it does, then Africa would have been one of the most developed continents in the world. Nigeria would have been one of the most developed countries in the world. What set them apart? It is the quality of their leadership and the quality of institution that they set up that drives development. People will always demand more, so you need government that will be able to be responsive to the demands and yearnings of their citizens. And you do that, government should not do that on their own. It must work collaboratively with citizens. Citizens must be on the table to say, this is what we want, and they sit together on the table to decide how do we go about it. In the process, there will be trade-off, because you may not be able to do everything that you want to do at a time. So you look at your resources and you have a trade-off. But you have to give citizens the confidence that if you have this trade-off today, this is the benefit tomorrow. In Nigeria, what are the trade-offs? That Nigerians are always asked to make sacrifices, but what they will benefit tomorrow is not clearly spelled out. If you spell it out and citizens believe in you, Nigerians will be ready to make the necessary sacrifices if those sacrifices have to be made.
Well, let's quickly wade in on this conversation on restructuring. I mean, since 1999, you have seen all manner of agitations because Nigerians clearly know that the democracy which they wanted and what they're hoping of their democracy, it hasn't delivered. And so people have said, oh no, it is because of the constitution. If some people will even go and start with the very first words of the constitution and say, oh, it says we the people never did give ourselves this constitution. This is a lie. Are you saying that at some point it is important that we all come together again as a people to say the type of country that we want? Because that's what the agitators for restructuring are saying, that we need to have a conference of some sort where we agree on the type of country that we want and how we want to achieve that particular country. And it would some even say, oh, we seem to be all agree that this particular context is not working for us. It's not delivering the dividends of democracy. I'm sure you've heard that cliche before.
Yes.
That what we need to agree is how to get to where it is that we want to go.
And the starting point for that debate, I think I agree with that premise, but the starting point for that debate cannot be on restructuring. Certainly the cost of governance is too high in the country, but we need to first, as a society, in my view, we need to agree that we want to industrialize Nigeria. We want to tackle poverty. We want to invest in the people of Nigeria. Then, on the basis of that, we can say, okay, the current structure, and there will be a number of others, that the current structures that we have today, are we going to be able to meet it with the current structure? We can have that. We can have that debate, but I don't think it is useful to start the debate in terms of restructuring, and that is why some people are talking about secession. I don't think.
But so that's another conversation.
Yeah. So I don't think the unity of Nigerians should be compromised. So we have to underline a number of basic principles to underpin the society that we want. And if on the basis of that, we realize that, look, if we want to achieve this, the current structure will not achieve that, then it is something that we have to address.
Let me ask you, because you seem to be one of those people, equating restructuring with calls for secession. And that's some people say no.
Some people make that argument, but I also listen to the other people say, look, let's look at the current structure, the 36 states. Do we need 6 geopolitical zones? Do we have too many local government? Let us have that conversation around the cost of governance.
These ideas around democracy, which you have a very clear understanding of, how is it working, or what would you say the deficiencies have been in a state like Kaduna?
Okay, look, I will say first that Kaduna is very lucky to have a very committed, visionary, dedicated governor who is ready to make the necessary sacrifices to ensure that the state is developed. The governor recognized from day one that peace is necessary for development. People have to live in harmony. A peaceful environment will create an enabling environment for people, for investment, for people to go about the means for which they can get their livelihood. So he appreciates all of that. And you can, if you go to Kaduna, I'm not sure the last time you were in Kaduna, but I will say today, Kaduna is a construction site. You go to Kaduna City, you go to Zaria, you go to Kafashan, as part of our urban renewal program. Those cities, they are basically a construction site.
What deficiencies have you seen? What do you think that democracy did not quite envisage? For instance, the issue of religion. When, for instance, and this is not talking about Kaduna specifically now, but assuming, for instance, a particular religion were to overshadow another one, does democracy as a concept look into, this kind of, a situation whereby that place or that particular issue could create a potential for conflict?
As I argue in my book, the problem in Nigeria is not the problem of religion. I don't see it as a problem of religion. There are conflict entrepreneurs that use ethnicity and religion to further their goals. But when you really go behind the scene, what motivates some of these people? It is mostly economic issues. Trying to get access to the purse of the state, or they foment trouble and they expect the state. And in most cases, it is the political elite that does that. Then they want maybe a governor or the federal government, to settle them. So that is one dimension of it. But there's also another dimension. In the context of high illiteracy rate, you are having misinformation about what this religion is about, what this other religion is about. But when you look at the history of this country, this religion that we talked about, people of those religions have lived side by side and have lived in harmony. So the crisis that we have in Nigeria is people using religion. But the main vacuum is the worship of what I call the Nigerian God.
Which is?
Worship for money, debase everything that needs to be debased, egocentrism,
and you think that
lack of lack of character.
Are those particularly or peculiarly Nigerian?
It is more peculiar, yeah. More also, it is. I think I have traveled to one or two countries in the planet, and you can have a conversation with people, and religion will not come up. But in Nigeria, people pretend that, no, this one is a Muslim, this one is a Christian, and they discriminate against you, or they will say, which church do you go to, and what have you. I'm not sure that, I have not heard anybody said he asked for the particular religion of a doctor or nurses that should take care of them. You just want a professional. So in all faiths, let us have professional teachers that do their work. Let us have professional nurses, doctors, engineers, etc., that professionally carry out their work. But in doing so, we should not lose one thing: our common humanity that binds us together. And in Nigeria, our common citizenship is also something that binds us together. We should not compromise those two principles: our common humanity and our common citizenship.
It's a fine place to leave it. Dr. Omano Edigheji, thank you for coming on Hard Copy.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Well, that's our conversation tonight. Mails and comments are welcome to the handles showing on your screen. Thank you for watching. I'm Omano Edigheji. Goodbye.